Hello Year 5, this is our English lesson for Tuesday the 9th of June. Today I'm going to ask you to listen to a wishing story. So continuing with our theme of wishes from last week where you watched and wrote your own short narrative on the wish granter, we're continuing with that theme, but this time our story has got a somewhat different ending, slightly different theme to it. Okay, so before I go into it anymore, I would like you to click on the link below in the description. It will take you to a story that's been recorded on SoundCloud. Okay, and it's called One Chance. If you start it at around 25 seconds in, and then what I want you to do first of all is I want you to listen to it until it gets to 1 minute 48. Okay, then I'd like you to pause it and come back and rejoin me. Okay, see you in a minute. I've asked you to pause here in the story because this is where we reach quite an interesting point. So Sarah has found this golden lottery ticket. The first wish has been redeemed. I wonder what that wish was for. And then there are two other wishes. What wish do you think she's going to make? Why do you think she might make that wish? So you don't need to write these answers down. I'm just asking you a few questions to get you thinking before you finish listening to the story. Why do you think she would be more likely to want to make a wish than her husband? And what do you think might happen at the end? Do you think she's going to be happy and grateful for having made that wish or those wishes? Or do you think perhaps not? So just have a think about those things for a few seconds and then go back to the SoundCloud file and listen to that to the end and then come back to see me. Okay, see you again in a minute. So were your predictions correct? Or were they fairly close to what happened? Or were they completely miles apart from what happened? Either way, I think you will see that this wishing story has got rather quite a different tone to the wishing storyline in the Wish Granter last week. Sometimes when you make a wish, you either get what you hadn't anticipated, or maybe it makes somebody realise that they shouldn't have made that wish in the first place. Because actually sometimes you might get what you wished for, and when it's too late, you might realise that actually you never wanted that to happen anyway. And that's kind of the theme of this story, isn't it? With Sarah, who's feeling rather disgruntled, quite unhappy, fed up, miserable with her life at this point. And she makes a wish, and then her husband disappears with the dog. And then she realises that she could use that third wish, couldn't she? To wish for them to come back. And then the lottery ticket blows away. And that's the end of our story, isn't it? So we'll never know whether she manages to get her wish true or whether that is just it, that they remain disappeared forever. Anyway, what I'm going to ask you to do now is I'm going to ask you to have a look at pages 2 and 3 in the PDF file, okay? Page 2 looks like this. You won't necessarily see it completely clear, okay, but you have got the PDF document to look at. So this is what page 2 looks like, and we can see it's got a title, Boxing Up a Story. In this column here, we have got our plot points. So just like with the Wish Granter, I have divided up this story into 5 plot points, and it tells you here a very brief overview of what happens in each plot point. Then we've got a column for original story. So what I mean by the original story, I'm talking about the one that you've just listened to, the one that's called One Chance. And then here we have got a column where it says my own ideas to include in my own wishing story. I'm just going to ignore that column for the moment, okay? And I want us to focus on this column here. Now, if you have a look on page 3, you have got this. We have got different statements to sum up what's happening at different points in the story of One Chance. And I've put a letter next to all of them. What you need to do is to think carefully about the story and how you've listened to it well. And on page 2, you need to write down the letters of the statements with the correct plot points. So for example, let's have a look. Jack and Hope don't come back home. If you think that happens near the start of the story and you think it happens around the time that the object arrives, then you would write that letter in this box here, okay? If you think it happens later on in the story, you would write it in the appropriate box that you think is correct. You don't need to copy out the whole sentences, just copy the letters. So for example, you might decide that you're going to put letters C, J, H in there, A, D, P, whatever, okay? So just write the letters, but once you have made sure that you've got all of the letters written in this column, what I would then like you to do is I would then like you to look at those letters and go back to the statements, okay, to remind yourself, and then put the letters that you've written down in order that they happen within each plot point, okay? Top tip, if Mum or Dad has printed you off the PDF, don't put scribbles through the statements, but tick them off once you've done them so that you've got less and less to look at each time. If you are looking at them on a screen, I would suggest, how many have we got? I would suggest writing down letters A to R and then simply ticking those off on a piece of paper so that you know that you have dealt with those ones, okay? So pause me now, do that task, and then come back to me, okay? See you in a few minutes. Okay, so this is what I've got. Now, it might be that the odd letter here and there, you might have put in a plot point earlier or a plot point later, okay? That I'm sure is fine. As long as, for example, you haven't got letter E, for example, in plot point 3, because that would be very far wrong, okay? But some here and there, you might have put a slightly bit earlier or the one afterwards. And then what I've done with the letters, first of all, I just wrote the letters in the boxes, and then what I did, so I went back and then I put them into an order, okay? So if you want to just pause this and check against what you have got. Okay, now let's have a look at this third column here, my own ideas to include in my own wishing story. I'm just going to give you a heads up here. If you hear shouting in the background, it's because my daughters are having an argument. I can hear them at the moment. I'm hoping it's not picking up too much. Okay, so what we're going to be doing over the... Yeah, somebody's stomping up the jet stairs. What we're going to be doing now for the next several days is I'm going to be asking you to write your own wishing story. But what we're going to do before we get to the point where I ask you to write your own wishing story is I'm going to take it plot point by plot point each day, okay? So tomorrow I'm going to start off with plot point 1. We're going to have a look at the plot point 1 from the original story, and then I'm going to show you how I am modelling my own version of that. And then I will ask you each day, once you've seen me model my own version, for you to model your version, but following the criteria that I'm giving you. there will then be an opportunity at the end of that sequence of work for you to go back to your different plot points, for you to add in more of your own ideas. So I would suggest that this column here, use that just to put very short bullet points of ideas as you think about them in the coming few days. You don't necessarily need to do it right now, but you might want to do it when we model each plot point day by day. And you might think, oh, I'm going to magpie that idea, but I've got my own idea for this. And you might just want to keep a note of those ideas in this column as we go along, okay? However, if you've got some ideas right now about things that would fit in nicely with our overviews of our different plot points, get them down now. It's up to you, okay? And that is our lesson for today. Have a nice day and see you tomorrow. Bye.